For folks who are just joining us kind of for the first time, my name is Bill Potter. I'm the Vice President of Pre-Sales Engineering here at Nuix. I've worked in the eDiscovery space since about 2005, where I was a practitioner doing data analytics and review way back in the day. So I kind of laser focused on simplifying the activity and easing the burden and really eliminating the late nights aspect of eDiscovery and investigation response time. I've been working with or for Nuix since about 2010. For those who aren't familiar with Nuix, we're an Australian company, although we've had a global presence for I think we just celebrated our 25-year anniversary. Being an Australian company, we kind of grew up more in the investigation space. A lot of our clients are law enforcement, regulatory agencies. We actually just signed, I think, our 95th global regulatory agency. So we do a ton of work around the world here in the United States, North America, Europe, and APAC. But our perspective is very much around fact finding and arming people to go into meet and confers and negotiate the scope of their eDiscovery burden, as much as it is on the delivery of an efficient review practice. Most people know Nuix from the Nuix workstation and Nuix data processing days. We've introduced a lot of automation and a lot of AI in the past several years. And we also acquired Nuix Ringtail, which is a tier 1 review platform that's available on-premise and will be available on-premise long-term, since a lot of our government clients require that. It's also available through a SaaS platform. Really excited today to have Drew Gabler and Mark Nemo Emil joining us from iDiscovery. Drew is the Director of Discovery Services. Mark is the Manager of Discovery Services Engineering. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed in getting to know them is the strong partnership they have between those roles. And you can see in working with them how that partnership allows IDS to be particularly forward-leaning on innovation and driving the adoption of change. So Drew is a little bit more client-facing, working with clients to understand what their requirements are and figuring out how we're going to deliver that. And then Mark's role is more oriented towards satisfying the solution that Drew has drawn up and maximizing productivity for the team. Mark also goes by Nemo because he likes to really dive deep into things, which has been a lot of fun to work with. So if you find us calling him Nemo, that's us talking about Mark there. I'd like to start off, Drew, by asking you to tell us a little bit about IDS. I know that you guys we've been working with IDS for over 10 years. I remember when Dan Regard and Nuix tackled what we call the Beans project, which was 300 plus terabytes of email archive data that needed to be scanned and sorted and produced. So we've been working with IDS for a long time. I know you guys are really highly ranked. I think Jacques was telling me 9 years in band 1 for the eDiscovery space. I'd love to have you just kind of tell us how IDS is positioned in the legal services market today, and really, why does someone choose to hire IDS to help them support a project?
Yes. Well, thanks for having us, first of all. Someone hires IDS when they're looking for a team that's going to help deal with a complex, data-driven legal dispute, and they want the best team, the most experienced team available that's going to be ready to testify in court. So our team comes with industry recognized thought leaders and seasoned practitioners. A lot of those people actually helped shape the best practices in eDiscovery that are being used today. So that means that we're not coming to the table with a one-size-fits-all approach. We are bringing a strategic, defensible, and highly tailored mindset to every engagement. So they're coming to us when the stakes are high, whether that, like I said, uh, expert testimony in court, AI enhanced review, regulatory investigations that include high volume document review, and complex data collections with in-depth analysis. So they really know that we're not just executing tasks, we're actually helping them navigate the risk that's involved and mitigating that risk. We're helping them move faster, and we're helping them stay defensible at really every stage throughout that process.
I've got to imagine with all the change that's happening in the industry, shifting file types, the role of cloud compute, the different AI disruptions, changes and pressure on how we approach review. I've got to imagine that having a team that's kind of been there and done that in establishing best practices allows you guys to think about, well, how do we navigate the change happening today? Do you think that's a fair statement? How is IDS thinking about where eDiscovery is going?
I agree with you. I mean, it's an evolving process, like you mentioned, because it changes every day with the improvements and changes in technology, the improvements, or not improvements, but the changes in discoverable information and how we handle that, and being at the forefront of how we manage that and set examples of how the industry handles it, I think really helps with how we meet and deal with our clients.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the defensibility part really, I mean, it certainly comes through for me when I have the chance to talk to the IDS team. So what I'm hoping to do today, and Drew, Mark, thank you guys for kind of being along for the ride here. I want to talk a little bit through some of the changes and evolution of our relationship with IDS, because Nuix has been working with IDS for several years. I'm going back 10 years, maybe longer, but it's primarily been in the digital forensic space. More recently, you guys have started to leverage Nuix more aggressively in the eDiscovery space as well, and we've partnered pretty closely on that, and it's been a really great journey for me to be part of. I'd love to talk about sort of what drove that decision to standardize on Nuix for the eDiscovery data processing and ECA activity. I want to talk a little bit about what that change required of your organization, where we're at today, what you're excited about, lessons learned, things along those lines, and then talk a little bit about where we're going and get back into a little bit of that what happens next world. So, Drew, talk to me a little bit about what triggered the decision to leverage Nuix more for eDiscovery processing and ECA as opposed to the digital forensic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that we needed to make a change. We were looking for efficiency, flexibility, and control, and we found with Nuix that Nuix delivered all three of those. We were looking for a tool that was built for the cloud, like truly built for the cloud, that allowed for scalability, so we could spin up and down resources as we needed, and really just help easily mitigate the usage and the cost of our infrastructure. We wanted a tool that was planning for future growth and just like a future-focused tool. So we wanted customized automation and advanced analytics that could grow with our clients' needs. We found that the scalability and the automation in Nuix helped us, once we implemented it, get from collection all the way through to processing and ready for review faster than we had really ever been able to do before. I think the last key factor that we were really looking for when making a decision to move into a new platform was the ability to deduplicate across legacy data. So we processed over the years a lot of data in other tools, and we didn't want to have to maintain legacy licenses and spend money on that. And we didn't want to have to reprocess data in Nuix to be able to utilize those cases that are going to be going on for years. So using Rampiva, we were able to build out those workflows, allowing us to defensibly and accurately dedupe across that legacy data and take advantage of that without having to maintain outdated licenses, which I know is always one of the biggest pains when you're trying to figure out if you can move off a processing platform.
You flagged a couple of things there that I'd love to dig into more. And Mark, I'm gonna ask you to talk to us a little bit about kind of operationally, like as the guy who has to deliver on all that change, what was that reality like? But I really kind of flagged on kind of moving away from that legacy idea of a fixed sunk cost on-premise machines. You know, I know when I talk to folks about Nuix, there's this, well, don't you have to have like a lot of compute lying around? I think you guys are doing some really interesting things with cloud resources that I'm excited about. But also that aspect of from collection to review. You know, Nuix has always been a strong processing engine. I'd love to dig into more of the efficiency gains from automation and how that's impacting the team as well. And then that last piece about legacy license management, so you're not maintaining two systems during a sort of long ramp off period, is definitely something I'm interested in exploring more. But before we dig into sort of where you guys are at now, Mark, just do us the favor, you know, keep us honest. Drew and I are both like, this is super cool. You had to deliver a lot of this stuff. Talk to us about how moving to Nuix for eDiscovery impacted your team on the operational side and some of the things that you did to ensure a smooth transition.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. Again, thank you for having us. I want to start with there is a lot of challenges when you are moving into a new platform. And so switching to Nuix have been actually a big improvement for us. We've cut down a lot of manual work. We fixed a lot of issues with our infrastructure itself. So Nuix, and on top of it is Rampiva, is very stable, is very scalable, but also flexible. And so we built our custom Rampiva workflows. And for those who doesn't know what Rampiva is like a GUI, pretty much a user interface that's friendly to utilize Nuix itself. And so we built our custom Rampiva workflows to automate as much as possible of this workflow. And they have been a big help. Also, I want to mention that our IDS team are pretty neat. They really stepped up and picked up Nuix very fast in that portion of our eDiscovery life, which is processing. That's been a huge part of why this all works so well. And so I'm gonna give an example. So at the start, we did a full test, of course, across legacy and new workflows. And that's using dummy cases. We included nested zips, image-based PDFs, and much more, just to simulate a client dataset, just to come as close as possible to a real-life dataset. That's not clean like the sample that you can find out there. You can find a lot of samples. They're like a clean dataset. You run it through, and then you get certain optimal results. No, we didn't do it this way. We actually went with bad dataset. It showed us where the issues might happen, how to avoid them, or if they do happen, how to handle them. So that all was a big part of like the experience that we're getting, like the improvement that we're having. We built a lot of our workflows later on that, and ever since then, we don't have really any big issue. It's just a data issue.
Yeah, that's something that I have been particularly impressed by. Just that being really granular about what are things that we want to exclude, what are things that we want to have an exception workflow for, where like, hey, we know that this is an issue, but we're gonna handle it in the following way. The improved reporting capability for kind of chain of evidence and communicating back with clients. um, that's something I think you guys are doing a really great job of. How has, like, we've talked about automation you know and thank you for flagging. So Rampiva is the Nuix automation interface, connects to the engine. If you're working in Workstation, you can then target those cases with Rampiva. You can also create cases with Rampiva, work with them in Workstation, and they're all bundled together as a single platform in Nuix Neo for clients that are kind of going whole hog there. Just talk to me a little bit, Nemo, about, like, realistically, if you tried to replicate the workflow that you have today in a manual scenario, like, how burdensome would that be? Right?
Oh
Like,
Lord.
would you be able to do what you do now in a manual world?
It's not gonna, you're gonna have to split them in many, many workflows because our workflow is actually A to Z. It takes from
Mhm.
pre-ingestion step, which is like simply copying the data to a location for processing, all the way through processing and exclusions, deduplications, OCR, anything that you would do on a regular workflow, all the way to export itself and reporting on top of that. So it's not, if you are to do that manually now, I can't imagine how many hours you're gonna spend just clicking buttons and searching and tagging, doing all this kind of stuff. It's not as easy as me saying it right now, but the workflow takes a big load. And so I also wanna, because I don't want to skip this part where Drew said that we moving from a processing engine to another. Everyone said it's not possible. Just to be clear. So everyone said you cannot deduplicate again. It's like between two different processing engines. Well, the fact is we did it, and so it's possible. For Nuix, that's the beauty about Rampiva and Nuix, that you can do scripting and you can do all this kind of features, all the add-ons and the things that you can use. This is the flexibility I'm talking about, that you can accomplish something that you would think normally, no, it's not, you cannot do it. As long as you have open-minded and you can think outside the box, it's doable.
That's what Bill means. I simplified it too much.
Well, I think this is a really highlights. When I talk to Nuix clients, I talk about enabling generalists, right? Because there just aren't very many people in this space who can go that deep. I mean, Nemo, there's a reason they call you Nemo, right? So we need to figure out a way to make this stuff more accessible for people, frankly, people like me, whose reference point is 15 years ago in concordance. But making it accessible to generalists. But the other part of it is amplifying experts, right? And this is where I've really enjoyed working with IDS, because, like, you guys really get data. And so diving into the granular details around, here's how we do it in one world, here's how we're going to do it in the other world. How do we take full advantage of Nuix and that automation? I think that's been a really cool part of this process. So Drew, talk to us a little bit about how your conversation with clients has changed as you move from this more manual legacy process to an automated, cloud-enabled Nuix data processing in ECA. How does that change your relationship, how you think about the problems that IDS can help clients solve?
So it doesn't necessarily change our conversation because our clients' expectations they just get higher and higher. They've always expected what we're giving now and more. But since our move to Nuix, we've seen several benefits. We've seen a drastic reduction in the number of trouble tickets and issues with the platform. So The tool is just more stable, it's more intuitive, and it really works the way we need it to. And if it doesn't, then we update our workflows, and then it does once we get those right. We've also seen gains in efficiencies where, like we've mentioned earlier, which a lot of the themes we're going to talk about, I think, are going to all come up several times in this conversation. But we've seen you can get the same amount of work done with a significant less amount of clicks. And so that might not seem significant or sound significant, but when we're dealing with hundreds of cases and thousands of actions, it really adds up very, very quickly, as I know that Nemo can attest to. And I think another theme and very important aspect is the increase in throughput that we're seeing. So from the automation and the scalability of the platform, we're able to more efficiently get through our day-to-day work. We're able to scale up quickly and handle surges in data volume, and we can do that without the bottlenecks and delays that we'd see in the past.
Let me build on this one as well, Drew and Bill.
Of course.
So it's a very good example that Drew just mentioned on the data surges. So previously, when you get, let's say you got 10, well, not, let's make it a little bigger, 50 EID, which is it's a very, very common in nowadays. You get 50 different evidences, and then you want to process all of them. And so previously, without automation, you would go in and you would queue every one of them separately, especially if they are different custodians. And so that means it's 50 clicks times how many processes that you're going to run on that particular evidence ID. Now, with Ramviva, and you're going to see the big jump here, we can just run a list of everything that needs to be processed, and the system will do it themselves. It's not going to require any intervention from our team. Our team is doing more of the engineering work and focusing on that, and leaving the clicking to Ramviva and Nuix to do. That pretty much summarizes it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because when Nuix has been in this space for, we did 25 years, right? So it really, for a long time, people partnered with Nuix because they had a ton of data, right? And this industry had a data problem, and we still do in a lot of ways, right? I think you guys have both alluded to, client expectations are going up and volumes are going up. The number of projects and the number of data sources are also going up, right? So when you think about data, it's not just about volume, it's about the number of tasks you need to execute, the number of projects, the number of sessions, right? And that's the piece that, when I think about it, it's not really a data problem anymore, it's a person problem. How do we help people do more in their day because they're being asked to do so much more? Does that resonate?
It does. It does. And so again, I want to also emphasize on, you are leaving the creativity work of the engineers to be not on clicking, like they're not wasting their time on clicking buttons. They are more of like they are fixing the actual data issue, but we are offloading all the burden of setting each task at a time from them, which that it's a big deal for me as a manager to just comfort my team a little bit by offloading these tasks from them.
Do you think that helps with, I don't want to be so like, business hat as to say retention, but like team satisfaction, right? Like, we want the people who work for us to be kind of having fun, feeling rewarded, feeling like they're making positive progress. Does that shift from staging jobs to solving problems help the team feel like they're having an impact?
Absolutely, yes, of course, because they have time to do other things that are more interesting.
Well, and Drew, this kind of gets back to, you'd had a point on your kind of criteria list about, planning for the future, right? Partnering with an organization that was thinking about things that come next. And I've kind of heard Nemo talk about kind of 2 or 3 things that I think are critical about what's next, right? One, giving time to the team to think about how in the world are we going to do this, right? Which in the age of cloud and new data types and AI, thinking about how we're going to solve the problem is almost, as important or maybe even more important than actually doing it. So having that human time, I think, is important, but also like the confidence, right? That ability to execute in a super predictable way, find the thing that didn't execute as you expected and fix that. And then just the speed to getting to where you're trying to go. How does that, help you guys think about what you want to do next? Is that, or am I connecting the dots in the right way, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, these workflows that we're talking are evolving, not daily, but monthly, weekly, really just depending on what's coming in, what new things we're seeing. So it's a lot of just staying on top of building out that automation. And that's, I mean, one of the other, I think Nemo kind of touched on it, where we're not working on those repeatable technical tasks. We're now getting more involved in the engineering and design of these workflows, and we're spending more time on that, but then in return, we're getting that automation that is just, going through these workflows and removing a lot of the manual steps. And I've been talking about this, but I don't know if I answered the question.
No, I think that's kind of where what I've been seeing, just in terms of like when you get bogged down in execution, it's kind of hard to step back and say, how can we do this better, right? I'm interested that you're like the workflows are dynamic. And I know that, one of the things that Nuix's focuses on through our Advantage program is giving clients access to, our kind of team of experts for like workflow design. But am I right in thinking that you guys have built some expertise in that workflow change, that workflow design step, and that's got to be like a new skill set, right? That's not something that you ported over. You've had to figure that out, kind of, and kind of build those muscles. Is that a fair thing to say? And what's that journey been like?
We definitely have, and I will definitely hand this question off to Nemo.
So yeah, let's roll back a little bit, Bill. So when we started with Rambiva, we took a workflow that we used in another platform and we kind of mimicked it, make it look the same, and that's a good start. But that was not really the target. The target is to improve our workflows and make it as automated as possible and all the good stuff. And so as a start, that was a good move. But then what's even better is that we started building on top of that. So adding, for example, the staging step, instead of the engineer going and copying data, which is like a very, very simple repetitive task, copying data from location to another for staging and arranging how it's named and how all this stuff is doing, into the Rambiva workflow will do that part for you. And then you add the case or recreate the case if the case doesn't exist, which usually would take, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes on other platforms. In this one, you click the button, you give it the information already, it's gonna create the case for you. It's not like rocket science. And then it goes through the processing, and every time we started adding things here and there, steps here and there to evolve our workflow and make sure that we are meeting efficiency as well as precision and getting the client the data that they need in the time that they are expecting. And that's a big part of the whole process of the automation, that you're not wasting time or I don't want to say wasting time, because sometimes that the time that you spend on other platforms is necessary, but in this case, it's not. It's done by automation, by Nuix engine itself. And so, for example, we let's say password protected files. Let's just say that on top of my head. So we had originally we didn't have that in the workflow in the other platform. That's something that got added into Ramviva. And so it looks for like a password bank and it does the password detection, and then it decrypts if there's anything that was password protected. That's a part that was done manually before. That's now automated. Things like doing a search and tag and exporting only a portion that you're looking for review and not the whole case. That's another thing that was not available in other platform that's available to us in Ramviva. And as you can see, it's improvement over time. As Drew said, we are improving this. I want to say more like weekly or bi-weekly, that we come up with something that's going to make it more efficient and more precise, and we figure out a way we engineer it and add it into the workflow. That way it's evolving, it's never going to stop evolving, and it's always going to be growing. I love this part about Ramviva, by the way. You can feel it in my voice. I'm really passionate about
it. It's been a lot of fun. It's also, man, it's a bear to keep up with. But this is great. I appreciate this. I guess the since we've got an audience of folks who are looking at Nuix or have Nuix and are looking at automating that process, or they're thinking about partnering with IDS. When you're thinking about that process of, we started by automating the workflow that we had, and then we built on top of it based off of new requirements. Is there a place where you took a backseat and said, now that we know the full capabilities of the platform, let's start fresh? Or are you focused on iterative building to meet specific client requirements, and you're taking more of a grow by demand type of approach?
I can take it, but I think you can give more details on it, because I think it is more iterative. It's not like we're rebuilding the workflows. We're utilizing what we have, building on top of it, and for the most part, we can utilize that across most of our cases. It's not like a one-off where we're completely rebuilding the workflow. But Nemo, I'll let you build on.
Yeah, absolutely. Our workflows are always, as I said, they are evolving. So if let's say that we got a new request from a client that needs a specific thing to be done to the data that we don't have currently in our workflow, we don't rebuild the whole workflow. We just add that portion to the workflow to get it done. Figure out, engineer it, add it, test it, run it. You get the results.
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about where you guys are at today and what you're thinking about doing next. So, we've talked about the change process, that change management process. I know that you're doing a lot more with cloud capabilities. You're thinking a lot more about ECA. You're thinking a lot more about solving data problems. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing now that you're excited about, and also where you're hoping to take it in the near term.
I mean, we've been very excited about the improvements that we've been able to make with Nuix, with mainly the processing speed and throughput was so huge for us, and being able to scale up and down as we needed and control costs by utilizing the cloud. Right now we have a significant amount of advanced analytics capabilities and cognitive services, partnerships, and abilities. And I think for us, the next step is getting more of that built around our Ramviva workflows so that we can automate the usage of that. And because, obviously it's been very prevalent in eDiscovery and the workflows that we're doing, but being able to utilize that with automation and like the click of a button, what we removed all the manual intervention before, being able to take advantage of that for those other services as well. And I know a lot of that is included in Nuix Neo, and I mean, we're excited about the potential of Neo and the improved automate. I think there's improved automation in there. There's more analytics capabilities, but getting that added into our workflow now, which I is very important for some of our next steps. And I know that Mark has other ideas.
Always.
Mark, yeah.
Mark, do you want to unveil them, or are you keeping them to yourself for now, and you're gonna spring them on Drew later? You're like, I have other ideas. You just wait. Buckle up, buddy.
Well, we are always on the lookout for new technologies, new things to add to our workflows, new things to give to our clients, offerings to our clients. And so when Drew is talking about cognitive services and things, it's very nice way to start this conversation, because in Nuix you can actually now connect multiple cognitive services third-party applications, and so that makes your life way easier. So that, for example, OCR. When you are running an OCR engine on a document that was like a PDF or something that's very clean, you get good results. But when the data is, and that happened at IDS, and we had a very good success with a client. When we get some very, very old, sometimes handwritten notes, that it's not possible for any OCR engine to handle that easily, and so you have to involve AI. And doing that will get you the results that you're looking for. And so Nuix gives you the ability to connect that into the engine itself. You can do it from within Nuix, or you can do it through Ramviva, through different type of connection that you run the cognitive service on a specific group of documents, and it will return back to you very, very nice, actually, text files that you can then search or do whatever you want to do with this data. So that's one of the things that we did before, and we're always looking at improvement in other things. We also did form recognition, entity extractions. We did multiple. There's many things that we did. Transcribing, for example, translation. All of these services can be connected inside Nuix if you know what exactly you're looking for. And so yeah, it's convenient. And I'm not gonna stop there.
Well, and that's another place where I think, like, when I think about the role of a eDiscovery analyst or a data processing analyst, level 1, level 2, the expectations of that role historically have been you're able to follow the guide and click the buttons in the right order. You may be able to QC that process and confirm that you got the results that you're expecting. And I feel like we're starting to push the boundaries and say, actually, what we expect you to do is think about the interplay between this data set and this external system, and how we're going to use that to score based on where we're trying to go for the project, right? Which is a much more creative and problem solving, not just like, it's not just Nuix expertise, it's that Nuix ecosystem expertise. Is that a fair thing to say? Is that something your team is pushing?
It's very fair, Bill. It's interesting. We were talking about this now because in IDS we try to kill all the birds with one with one rock, not just two. And so in our workflow, and I'm not sure if you saw how our workflow is structured and things like that, but it's pretty much like a live workflow. You can add bars and remove bars from it on the fly. Just before you start the job, make sure that you're selecting the one that you're looking for, the workflow that you're looking for. You know what you need from it, and then it will run it for you. A simple example, and that's not related to AI or anything, that's built-in tools inside Ramviva itself. that you can, let's say you process data, you can process the data, export its reporting, and then you can also push it to something like SQL for some analytics teams that use SQL. That's another thing that's done on the fly. It's not something that you're gonna take and then load it manually. You can actually do that within Remviva. That's a big thing. And so these are the kind of things that we keep adding every day. Per request, of course, like when we see a problem that's coming, or we think of a problem that might come, and by a problem, I mean a request from a client, we try to solve it upfront. It's kind of innovative for us. And we like it.
So Drew, when you're thinking about kind of this process of, you know, we've automated data processing, right? Now we're talking about automating what I think of as scoring in anticipation for ECA, right? And there's scoring that you can execute in the Nuix engine, and then there's scoring that you need a third-party tool to help support. So when you think about this next step and the value of automating it, how much of that is the ease of use and performance gain? How much of that is, you know, maximizing the consistency and minimizing the cost of QC? And how much of it is that data segmentation, optimizing what data you send for scoring with a third party? Because, you know, third parties have their own charges as well, right? What's the balance of value there?
I mean, it's a fine balance, and you mentioned a lot of things, but I mean, right now we're working with your team to build a solution with that can integrate in the platform that is going to allow us to completely remove some steps that we're doing that we're currently using a different tool for, and it's going to allow us to do it all within Nuix and automate it using Rampiva, you know, and the efficiency gain that we will get there will outweigh so many of the other factors that are involved. And so, I mean, that's one of the great things about our partnership, that we're able to do things like that, not only like bring our own whatever we're bringing in, the different analytics and different tools, but being able to partner with the development team to customize our instance of Nuix and being able to build on top of it. And I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about with adding these capabilities into the automation, and, you know, going back to being able to do it with a single click. And it's part of that workflow for what we needed to accomplish.
I mean, it's certainly an exciting time, and, you know, it's one of the reasons I was thrilled that you guys were doing this webinar with us, because I think there's pushing that boundary of what can we make this thing do. I always really like that opportunity, and I appreciate that that we've had a good partnership there. I think that speaks highly of the Nuix team, and so I'm always appreciative of that. I want to be conscious, you know, just thinking about, you know, we've got 15 minutes left. No one really likes it when webinars go all the way to the end. So if there's questions from the audience, I'd love to invite questions at this point. But Drew, Nemo, I'd also like to talk a little bit about, you know, you're both experts in this space. You've been doing eDiscovery, digital investigations, data handling for, you know, you've seen it. You've been through the ringer. Talk to me a little bit about, like, you know, some of the lessons learned or advice you might have for folks who are kind of sitting in it at the minute, wondering what do we do next, right? Just what's your perspective as experts in the space about kind of where we're at, where we're trying to go, and what people should be thinking about?
So let me take that question first, though. So I'd say the biggest lesson is really to take the time up front when you're getting into Ranviva and Nuix or planning to use them, or you already use them. Take your time up front. Don't rush into processing. Nuix and Ranviva are huge factories. They are not like a small machine, like a simple machine. They are complex. They are huge in a good way. And so learn how Nuix works, how Ranviva interacts with Nuix, and really understand what you need from it. When you know what you need from it, it's going to help you a lot building all these workflows and all these magical things. And so the more you plan ahead, the smoother things will go for you later. Build your workflows that can scale and handle errors, not just run fast, because speed is not everything. So Ranviva itself gives you a great automation tools and multiple of them, but they work best when your workflow are well thought out. Like you know what comes before what should I accomplish first? What's gonna come next? Then it's gonna worth the effort early on, and it will make your life so much easier when you're done with those workflows. And so I want to say before we went live with Ranviva, we designed workflow templates. We designed naming conventions, output structures, different ones. We planned for different types of processing. We planned a workflow that takes the data from A to Z. And we planned also what's called, and we call a checkpoint system, which you can focus only on a particular process that you want to run on a specific matter, and not the whole thing. So all of this gave us flexibility, the most flexibility that we can have. And also we learned a lot doing them, because when you're doing something, that's the best way to learn, really. Now, spinning up a case, again, spinning up a case is like clicking and just walking away. You don't have to sit, you don't have to do anything. It's just because you already put the work up front. The engineers put all the designs and all their thoughts inside that workflow that now made their life easier and made them improve, because now they have time to work on something else.
Yeah, I'm laughing a little bit because I spend a lot of time talking to people who are thinking about Nuix, thinking about Nuix Neo or Ranviva, and I always have a moment where I'm like, can we just talk a little bit more about what you're trying to do, and then I can go away and like futz around and make it do what you're trying to do, but like help me understand the problem you're trying to solve first. Let's take that time, and then I'll show you how it does it. And then instead of like, oh, let me just show you theoretically how one client has this configured. I'm under a ton of pressure from my sales team to use the word sophisticated instead of complex, but like there's a lot you can do. John Bargel has this great line about Nuix is a Swiss Army knife, but tell me if you're trying to open the wine bottle or if you need the nail clippers, right? Just thinking through the different options there. So I think that's a lesson that I'm hoping some Nuix folks are on the call, because we can learn that lesson ourselves. Drew, what are some of your thoughts in terms of lessons learned or advice for folks who are going through this process? And then it looks like maybe we have a couple of questions from the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest lessons learned from my perspective, I'm pretty much in alignment with Nemo, but make sure that you understand all the capabilities that are available, because it's not the same in Nuix as it is in other platforms, so that when you are defining your requirements, if you want to include some of those things, you can do it. You can decide whether you do it at the beginning or if you hold off to build out your initial workflow and then add them in later. But then, so it's clearly defining your requirements, and then just knowing that the more you invest up front in building out your workflows the way you want them, it might seem like a significant investment, and which might be or not be necessary, but by building those out, the time that you're going to be saving by utilizing that automation in the long run will make up for itself tenfold, hundredfold in the long run. So the upfront investment is definitely worth the investment.
Yeah, I was
Where are you
just
going
sitting
there,
here
Drew?
being like, man, I wouldn't actually do this, but I was like, I'm gonna tell people that Drew Gabler says it has 100x ROI. I'm teasing, but I
Whoa.
think that leads nicely into one of the questions that we've got from the group. So, you guys talked about that transition process, right? So we've got one system, we're moving into another system. You have an aggressive, what I'll think of as an aggressive goal in terms of phasing out the first system. How long did it actually take before you were processing data for eDiscovery in Nuix, like on a production case? Like how long did that transition take once you decided to do it?
Well, Bill, that will really depend on how many cases you have, how big are the cases, what system you're talking about. There is a lot of variances. And so it's not gonna be fair to like say a specific time. But I'd rather say it was rather quick because we had when we started, we created a dummy what do you call this? A dummy not workspace, but a dummy environment, a test environment, where we installed everything. We installed our Nuix engine, we installed Rambivas, and that's how we got into working, like making workflows in parallel to the environment that we had before with other platform. So we were running the same project on both sides to see the variances, the differences, the errors that we're getting. That was the very, very start. But then
so you ran them in parallel.
Yes, the test environment for Nuix alongside the on-prem environment for the other platform. We ran both in parallel just to get the results and compare them. Of course, we don't need any discrepancies or anything that might make our clients' life harder. We want convenience, not hard times. And so that helped us a ton, because once we moved from that temporary environment with Nuix and moved into the permanent one that we currently run right now on Azure, it was just a flip of a button. It was not it didn't take long because we already did all the transfers, we already did all the conversions, and some of the conversions actually kept going, kept ongoing, but there were no active work on them or anything like that. That's why I'm saying it's very hard to specify the time. But if you blend everything, it shouldn't take long at all. I want to say if you have 10 cases or something, it's gonna take a week. But if you have millions of cases, that's a different story. And so, yeah, I know.
I feel like your answer here is like, well, it didn't take us very long, but I don't want you to compare yourself to us. We're really not. I'm teasing. Well, thank you both for the time today. I've had a lot of fun working with you through this journey and preparing for this webinar. And today was great to chat. So Drew, Mark, thank you both for your time today, and looking forward to what comes next.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.